talk to you about creating a learning culture in a VUCA world. It's becoming quite a well-known phrase, but not everyone's heard of it yet. So who has heard of the concept of VUCA as yet? Okay. So for those that haven't, I've had to change. I don't actually know the right way to pronounce it. It's one of those things. I started saying VUCA and people went, pardon? And it was so I've kind of come up with VUCA. One of my esteemed colleagues over here thinks it sounds like VUCA. But either way, it's VUCA. I'm a little bit buzzy today, Bob. And I haven't moved, I know. Let me just, hang on, turn this off a second and just turn that. There we go. Right, that should be better. That's better. I've just turned the speaker away from me. Too much feedback. Okay, so for those of you that haven't heard, I'll give you a very brief introduction to what VUCA is about. But today we really want to talk about how it applies to you as L&D professionals. Okay. And what the difference it means for you. So if you haven't heard, basically VUCA is about the fact that we live in a world that is volatile, uncertain, complex and ambiguous. So volatility is just the rate of change at the moment. It's just the last 10 years or so, it's just stupid. You don't have 1 or 2 changes, you're having 10 or 20 changes at the same time. Technology literally changes overnight. I don't know, did anyone ever see that series not very long ago on Channel 4 called Humans? And it was kind of about androids that literally looked exactly like humans, but they had no feelings. And when they advertised it to start with, they actually advertised it as come and buy your own synth. And I actually looked at it and thought, this could be possible. There's so much to go so quickly. When you then went to the website, it showed it was actually for a TV program. But things are moving so quickly that actually you could come up with a totally new technology, a totally new way of doing things. So it's very hard to to plan what you're doing when there's so much volatility going on. Uncertainty, in terms of obviously what's going on a global perspective, the whole kind of global economic crisis, all the kind of the issues with the wars in the world, you just don't know what's going to be happening. You don't have all the information about things. Complexity, both the digital world, we're now dealing totally globally, different times of day, different cultures, all sorts of things. There's so many different things that are actually going on at the moment. And finally, ambiguous. Even in the situation you're in, you still don't always have all the facts. And so if you look at the basic concept of learning about helping people to know what they need to know to do what they need to do, that's pretty hard when you don't actually first of all know what you need to do, and you definitely don't even have all the facts then to know how you do it. So it's a huge challenge for us at L&D, but I think it's also a pretty good opportunity. So I want to get us to look at this, because as it is a bit of a VUCA world, or whatever you want to call it, people are going to need us a little bit more. So sometimes I know L&D have kind of been a little bit of the whipping boy. It's like, oh, it's their fault because they haven't trained people. But actually it's an opportunity for L&D, I think, to take the proper place they have in an organisation and be far more strategic and be much more involved in where the organisation goes. I'm not going to do that one. So the essence is organisations need to learn and adapt quickly. And if organisations need to learn, that means the people within them need to learn. And I really love this little quote. The illiterate of the 21st century will not be those who cannot read and write, but those who cannot learn, unlearn and relearn. Because actually part of living in the VUCA world is all of the stuff that you thought was true, actually that doesn't apply anymore. You've got to unlearn all that stuff and all your old ways of doing it before you learn any new stuff. And there's a whole set of skills in being able to do that. So I don't want to stand up here and talk for 40 minutes because my throat will get very sore. So I am going to get you guys to get involved in this process as well. So I'd like you to get together with 2 or 3 people that are around you and just have a think about, from what we've just talked about so far with the idea of VUCA, what do you think that means for the world of L&D? So what does that mean for you as guys within L&D? So in terms of what might be some challenges you might come across, but actually let's think positive as well. What might be some opportunities that you can take as a result of that? Okay, so just take a couple of minutes in your groups to have a chat about opportunities and challenges. Okay. I'd like to take this opportunity as well to introduce you to my glamorous assistant, Hannah. Hannah is actually leadership manager at Durham Constabulary, who's one of our customers that we've been working with for about 4 years now, working with the leadership team and actually really getting a concept of having a much more learning culture, which isn't necessarily something you would historically associate with a police force, but they've done some amazing work on that, and we've kind of helped them along the way with that. So Hannah's going to talk to you a little bit about their learning culture a little bit later in the session. So to start with, should we do challenges first and get them out of the way, and then we can be positive and look at the opportunities afterwards. So what are any challenges that you guys think that the VUCA world is going to present you with in terms of L&D? Yeah.
In the environment that we work in, it's around the constant change and updating systems. It means just from a resource point of view, being able to train all of that.
Okay, so it's a constant change in systems and processes, so people needing to have the knowledge, I guess, to use those and to work the processes, and a lack of resource, therefore, to be able to keep up with changing that. Okay, an interesting thought on that is, does L&D need to do all of that? But yeah, okay, so resources versus constant changes. What else have we got? Yeah.
So I work in a heavily regulated industry, so there's a lot of compliance stuff which it's difficult to be flexible with. If it comes in, it comes in.
Yeah.
Things change, regulations change all the time. So that's difficult to then get everything else to fit around that, because that has to be done.
Right, so it's getting that balance when you're in a highly regulated area, which obviously we're familiar with in the police, but it's highly regulated and you've got compliance things that you have to do, how you get the balance with, let's try and be more adept and agile and do things, but you've got to do this still. So getting that balance.
It takes my training's about 3 months at the moment.
Really, so that takes a whole chunk of you. Again, it's the resource thing, that takes a whole chunk. Is, oh, we're going to change the Care Act, brilliant. Oh no, that's going to be in all of this. So yeah, okay, excellent. What else have we? Well, not excellent, but you know what I mean. Yeah.
I work in an American-owned aerospace business.
Okay.
And 2 years ago, the Americans decided to send a big chunk of our work out to Mexico for low-cost reasons.
Right.
Which caused a lot of uncertainty. That project, when they found out how much it was going to cost, has been put on pause till last week.
Right.
And now they're going to resurrect it. So the workforce are like that.
So you've got how people are feeling. So we've got here effectively, I don't know if we all heard that, but effectively a huge amount of work was going to be outsourced to another country. So you have everybody in the UK feeling very uncertain, not sure about their own futures. Why am I going to be motivated to want to learn and do things differently and better? Then it all went on hold, but then it's now started again. So everyone's kind of like, so you've got those kind of whole emotional things that are going on for people when they're going through that change process. What's it going to mean to me? And it's a big human thing. One of our biggest drivers is wanting to be in control. And actually, you kind of can't. But it's how you get that through to people and how you manage that is much easier said than done. Okay, I know you had one over here as well.
All right, well, I work for a local authority, and we love a plan. We like to have a training plan for 12 months, and that doesn't suit me.
Absolutely, yeah. So we've got a local authority here who likes to have a plan for the year, and I have to plan for the year, but actually who knows in 3 months whether we're still going to need to do it. And actually we work for a few local authorities and I absolutely know what you mean. So you plan all these things like, oh actually we don't want those anymore, we want this now because that's more important. So it does make planning really hard. And actually I think the days of having a long-term year plan, we're going to do this, this and this, I kind of think they're gone for us in terms of like, you might have a few key things, but actually it's going to be much more flexible, which has challenges but can be good. Let's have some opportunities. I'm bored with the challenges now. So what are some opportunities that any of you might have come across, or did we get bogged down in challenges? No opportunities at all? Go on, yes, excellent, I'm running to the back. What's our opportunity here? Okay.
We thought there'd been opportunities to create more bite-sized training in a short-term time frame.
Yeah, so do more bite-sized stuff. Does it have to be a great big huge program all the time? Doing sort of more bite-sized things for people, absolutely. Yes?
Blended approach?
Having a more blended approach. And for me, blended, we kind of talk about push versus pull learning. Rather than pushing things onto people, you must have this training in your training calendar on these dates. Let's have things that are available for people to come and play with, to come and look at that information when they need it, when they're ready for it. Okay. Any other challenges that anyone's... Oh, sorry, now opportunities. Guys, see, you've got me in the challenge mode. Any other opportunities that anyone's come up with? Yes?
That it's less less about training people in subjects and more about helping people learn how to think?
I love you. Less about training people in subjects and more about learning how to think, or learning how to learn, actually. Because that's what we do our entire lives. It's kind of going through the different stages, and it's learning as we go through things. So it really is about changing a mindset. And one of our fusion learning, which is our methodology, the second pearl there is learning is a process, not an event. And so it is that idea about it's not training, it's learning. It's learning as individuals and it's learning as an organisation. I also, a couple of you talked about change there earlier on, and I'm trying to ban the word change as well. Last year I was trying to ban the word training. This year I'm trying to ban the word change. Because I don't know about you, the idea of change is people have this idea that change starts and we move a bit and then it stops. But it isn't. But people get the focus that when there's change there's going to be an end in it. So I quite like the idea of evolution rather than change. Because in a VUCA world, that's what you're doing. You can't change and be finished. You're constantly evolving and evolving in several different ways at the same time. So the big opportunity, I think, is in terms of the priority of L&D. I really do believe that, because if the organisation has got to evolve, the people have got to learn. And for the people to learn, you guys need to step up and get some priority and get some sort of profile in the organisation. So what I'm going to get you to do is look at an alternative to VUCA. So we call VUCA Prime. A guy called Bob Johansson particularly has done a lot of work on this. And this is kind of the antidote to VUCA. So we're going to spend a little bit of time on this, and then we're going to look to a little bit about culture generally and how you can embed a learning culture. And Hannah's going to talk to you as well about some of the things that they've done at Durham. So the antidote to VUCA is also VUCA. So what they're saying is, and I'll go through each of these in turns, but if you have vision, understanding, clarity and agility, as an organisation, as individuals, you'll be able to cope far better with the volatility, uncertainty, complexity and ambiguity. So I'm going to go through each of those in turn. So volatility yields to vision. So you're not going to necessarily know exactly what you've got in terms of your training plan for the year, but actually let's look at what's important to you as an organisation. What is our vision? Where are we wanting to go? And we know we might take a different path as we go along that, but if we've got that clarity on where we are as an organisation, that's really important. And in the work we did with Durham, they were going through a huge change. As a lot of police forces and public sector generally are, huge budget cuts. For the first time ever, they had actually got rid of frontline police officers. And so they brought us in to help them support a new operating model, which is basically moving from being geographic to being functional based, so completely turning on the head the whole way it was. So the two things they had, first of all, they had great leadership in their deputy, who's now their chief constable, and he said, you know, to make this work we need our middle managers to be thinking and working totally differently. And so the programme we ran for them was called Altogether Different. It was all about that. So what we did, the first thing, is we got people to think about what is their core purpose. So we came back to some of the systems thinking stuff and some of actually the purposeful passion that we look at here. What are we actually here to do? What's really important for us? Let's get focused on what we're trying to achieve. First at that level, and then in terms of this is the structure we're trying to do. And we also got them to look at what does success look like, and I think that's really important when you've got this like, oh my God, what the hell's going on? Actually, what does success look like in a year's time or 2 years' time? If we're creating our vision, what's that going to look like for us? So it's creating that motivation to go to somewhere. So having that vision at the outset is really, really important. And for you guys, that means engaging at a senior level to get clarity on what that vision is, or sometimes to maybe help your senior managers get clarity, because it doesn't always exist. Understanding so that's kind of will solve some of the issues with the uncertainty. Now you're never going to have the answers, but you know when you're struggling and you don't know what's going on, sometimes just having someone listen to you and acknowledge that you don't know what's going on and you feel uncomfortable about it doesn't solve the fact. You still don't know what's going on, but at least you feel that someone's acknowledged that you're not alone in that. So really important to find a way of understanding what's going on for people, and sort of finding ways that you can even get people to have what's happening in the short term for them in terms of things. So okay, so you might not know this, but let's give you this little bite-sized bit of training that's going to help you with this kind of thing that's going on now for people. One of the things we did particularly with the guys at Durham is we did some 360 with them, which was combined with coaching. and we identified what were the things that they were challenging with, what were their issues, what did they have, where did they particularly need to learn. So we got a much better understanding of what the learning needs were for them. Then complexity will yield to clarity. So we do have a habit of making things really complex. Let's have really difficult models. Actually, what is the core of it? Again, if you've got that vision at the outset, what is the core of things? So how can we get clarity about what we need? We won't get clarity about everything, but let's just get it about this thing. Let's just get clarity about what it means for them in their world, what they need to learn. One of the things that we did there was we got people to look at creating their own transition plans. So for their area, what does this mean to me? What am I going to do tomorrow? And actually start creating their own little plan around things. And then finally, ambiguity will yield to agility. So the subject behind this kind of links to, we all talk about hierarchies in organisations, but there's a new expression I don't come across called hierarchies. So it's that idea of it's your connections. So actually to be agile as an organisation, the last thing you need is those silos where you're kind of saying, I do my job and they do their job, but I have no idea what the heck they do over there, but it's fine. And it's not my fault because I've done my bit. To be agile, you need to get behind that. You need to have people that are connecting at all levels. Now in the police force, one of the big issues we found beforehand was that police and police staff just didn't really interact at all. It's like, you do your stuff, I do my stuff. And so one of the things we did was we created action learning sets. And we got people from all different levels and all different roles and gave them a real life challenge. So we said, okay, to help this model be implemented, what are some things that you think need to be done? And in their action learning sets, they then went away, a group of people, and started working on real life things. And they were actually given the power to do something about that. But literally just that time together, that working and understanding made a huge difference in terms of what they were doing. So go back to that slide again just to summarise. Vision or volatility will yield to vision. Uncertainty will yield to understanding. Complexity will yield to clarity. And ambiguity will yield to agility. So what I'd like to do is I'm going to split you into 4 groups. And I'm going to give you each one of those, so to think about what you can do specifically in L&D and in your area for each of those things. So if we start over here, kind of maybe you sort of 4 ladies here, look at the volatility vision. So what you can do around the vision in L&D to help sort of with some of the volatility side of things. If you guys kind of here can look at the understanding and uncertainty. So what you can do to increase understanding that will therefore reduce some of the uncertainty. And if you guys maybe actually that's fine, if you guys around the back there could then look at the complexity and clarity. So what you can do in L&D to create clarity that will help avoid some of the complexity. And you guys over here, then you get the A. So what you can do in terms of the agility, the networking, the getting people together, so that you can overcome some of the issues with ambiguity. Okay, so I'll give you a couple of minutes to do that. So let's start at the beginning, which is the vision. So what did you think over here, guys, you could do in terms, actually what I might do is plug the microphone in because then other people can, oh, sorry, I'm too close to that. How far over will that go? Doo-doo. Can I get one of you to speak into that? Save me repeating everything, it might be just a little bit easier, I think.
We had lots of ideas. We thought that,
Can we hear that, everyone? Yeah, that's good, yeah.
if you start with vision, then the obvious one is to link all L&D activities into the vision and mission.
So link it into the vision and mission, yeah.
Checkpoints, is what we're doing right at that particular time, because sometimes we can get a bit isolated, so it's our responsibilities, it's our responsibilities.
So yeah, so what are we doing right? We spend enough time telling people what they're doing wrong, but not what people are doing right. Yeah.
A very practical thing we thought we could sort of chunk things down. So be more modular, so in bite size.
So chunk things down, so it's not kind of like just one great big thing. I can't understand all of it. It's kind of let's have little bits that are going to make sense for us. Yeah.
Yeah, easier to change.
Yeah, and easier to change. Yeah, that's true. If it's too big, it's really hard to do that. Yeah.
And finally, challenge, change, influence culture. We have a big role in that.
Yeah, so challenge, change and influence culture. I'm going to come on to the culture bit sort of afterwards, but yeah, it's really important that you need to have the culture that creates. So we're going to be in charge of that, are you? Okay, excellent. So we've got understanding. So where's our U's? Are we at the back? Oh, over there. Okay, that's brilliant. So No, it's fine. I think it works. I think, yeah, we've got a bit more space there. That's it. Excellent, thank you. So what do we come up with for understanding to help to trump some of the uncertainty?
So we were saying you really need to ask questions of the business.
Ask questions of the business, yeah.
And
Yeah.
listen to the users.
Yeah, and I think that's at all levels. I think it's ask questions at the top to get the clarity, but also ask questions all the way down the organisation, because the challenges will be different at different places for people, yeah.
And we said acknowledge the uncertainty, so make sure that everyone knows that we're clear, we know what
Yeah.
we're dealing with here.
That's a really good point. I think that just acknowledging how people are feeling about things is really, really key, yeah.
And we said that it has to be linked to the vision, like you have to also understand what the vision is.
Yeah. So asking questions that don't relate to it are really not going to be important, absolutely, yeah.
And then present back what you've heard so that everyone knows that you understand what the issues are and that they can listen to.
Yeah. So you don't just gather lots of information. It kind of, have you ever done that? You filled in some kind of feedback form or something for someone, and it feels like it disappears into this big black hole. You never know what happens with it, and you've taken time to complete something, and you think, why the heck? But yeah. So even if you don't agree with everything, actually going back to people and letting them know what has been said and what you are going to do with it, I think is really, really important. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Excellent. Thank you very much. So we now have our clarity to overcome complexity. You're looking like you're very confused by all the complexity. You know, that will be later. Come back about 4 o'clock. I'm sure we can bring a quick number in for you.
And we also have asked questions, so talking about questions both up and down to
So asking questions, and it's true because you need to have the understanding. You also do for the clarity. Yeah.
when I said both up and down, make sure that we understand what the message is, so that when we're giving it to others, we're asking them questions, we're able to clarify.
Yeah, I think it's honing that into it, isn't it? So when you get the answers, it's honing what you get back into something that makes sense in easy terms. Coming back to what they said. Oh, sorry.
It's all right. It's about putting the business communications then into simple language that is understood by the masses, rather than the high level stuff that the people are supposed to understand necessarily.
How many organisations, I don't know, the amount of organisations I've ever dealt with, where when you do employee satisfactions, communication is always one of the things that everyone moans about. I do think that you're never going to have everyone happy. I do think you're either going to have too much or too little. But I think the biggest issue I've come across is that internal communications are written for external business senior people. It's in management speak, or a colleague of mine would say management it's actually making it in terms that make sense to people. So clarity for the people whose message it's aimed at, not clarity for the external people and what they're going to think about it. Yeah.
In terms of the WIFM, the what's in it for me factor, make sure that they understand the part that they play and the impact that's going to have on them. So
Yeah.
individual contribution.
So it's that linking to the individual. So it's not just what happens at this level. It's actually comes back to one of my personal favourites. I know we had one lady here that was at my Engaging Line Managers course yesterday. Is that it's actually getting the managers, who are the people that are on the ground, to be able to communicate the message in ways that make sense to their team. They're not going to understand it at that level, so it's making sense to people, and that's around the skilling of managers at that level and the engagement of them. Yeah.
Going back to what the lady said about bite-sized chunks, it's about ensuring that they are focusing on the bits that they can change and they can impact on, so understanding.
Right, so focusing on the bins you can. So actually we don't know about this stuff yet, but let's focus on this stuff which we do know about. Let's get clarity where we can get clarity, and then we can work on the other things as and when those things start to become more clear. Brilliant.
And Leslie, we came up with ensuring that we deliver the same message in all of our learning interventions, so that it's repeated, so that repetition starts.
Yeah, as we say, we need to hear things several times before it really sinks in for us. So don't just say it once, say it several times in different ways and linking it to different things. So that's really, really important. So, and who's going to speak from this group over here? I'm not going to walk over because I definitely will buzz if I go over that side.
Hi, we had agility, and we looked at different things like flexible learning. Someone here was saying about sort of shift working, how do you get everyone together, sort of thinking about the different ways, blended learning, so it might be videos, might be face-to-face, coaching. So we had flexible learning, we had thinking about the different systems you've got, the LMS systems, the variety of different mediums. So I think we were sort of saying, how having it just in time, so having it as and when you need it.
So having things as and when you need them, looking at the wider systems, and I mean, technology, you know, I'm not the world's best with it, but when it's used well, it can really simplify some of these things. It's that, I think we tend to be a little bit scared of those things in L&D that we might lose control of. Stuff that will enable people to just do their own thing and network in their own way. Those, you know, let's use those. Let's find any way to get people talking, whether it's sort of vocally or whether it's online, but actually get people talking to each other,
And what I've done is WebEx, so people are in different, you know.
Yeah, so WebEx, when you've got the remote systems, yeah.
You know, so weekly learning sessions via that,
Yeah.
together, like you say, not in silos, bringing them together.
So, yeah.
Adding, what I found with WebEx is if you actually, the challenge we had was if whoever was presenting, that room, you know, was fine for those people.
Everybody else got excluded, yeah. If anybody tried those, it can be a nightmare, can't it? Yeah.
And the sort of clever trick that we took on board was where we actually got the person who was delivering the training in a separate room,
Yeah.
so everyone had the same experience.
That's a really clever idea, actually. I like
It's
that.
quite a simple one.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just...
Because otherwise they play to the people that they're there, isn't it? They get all the attention rather than focusing on actually putting it in that way. Yeah, yeah, definitely. So.
Thinking about the different generations as well, you know, and recently I've been doing a graduate training programme, and it's actually thinking about the different ways that people learn.
Yeah.
So, you know, they're much more sort of generation-wise, much more about supporting it instantaneously. You know, they're not going to go and search for it. So just thinking of being agile there,
Okay.
thinking about the learners.
Brilliant. So a few really, really good sort of starters for 10 there. So thank you very much. I'm just conscious of where we are time-wise. It's flown by this morning. But what I would like to do, I wanted to spend a little bit longer looking at the sort of the wider culture thing now. So I'm going to hand over to Hannah in a second to talk a little bit about sort of the learning culture aspect of things. So how would you define culture? What does it mean to you?
How we do things.
How we do things. Have any of you come across this little story we have before about the monkeys? So it's that idea of you had a group of monkeys, they put bananas at the top of the ladder, and as soon as they went up, the rest of them got a cold shower, and then they got rid of one of the monkeys, put a new one in. As soon as he started going up, even before the cold shower started, the others were beating him up. And they gradually replaced one after another and got to a point ultimately when none of the monkeys within there had ever had a cold shower, but they all knew as soon as someone tries to go up the ladder, you beat them up. And I know they can't speak, but if they could and anyone had said to them, why do you do that? It probably would be, that's the way we do things around here. And so we all get into these sort of habits of things. Have anyone come across this model before, which is Jerry Johnson's Cultural Web? If you're looking at changing culture, I would absolutely recommend this. So many cultural things are a little bit airy-fairy. Oh, it's a bit HRy. But this is about the practical and physical representations of culture. So what I'm going to do now is get Hannah to talk through some of the things that happened. We talked about the Altogether Different programme that we did to start with, the Durham Constabulary. And she's going to talk through some of the stuff that's taken them from that journey to where they are now, to being a much more agile culture. And as she's going through, see if you can figure out how the things might have related to each of these different strands. So I'll just briefly explain them. We start off with the organisational structure. So how are you structured as an organisation? Is it very hierarchical? Is it flat? What kind of spans of controls do people have? How exact are people's job descriptions? Where is the power in the organisation? Are there certain people or certain departments that are very powerful? How empowered are people at the front coalface, if you like? Your routines, what are your expected behaviours? How do people communicate? How do they work together? What are the things that they do? What are your controls? So your formalised routines. And so your processes, your procedures, all your regulations, etc. that you have, all your measurements. What are your symbols? So the things that you symbolically say, your brand, your offices. And what my personal favourite, the myths and stories. So when people join your organisation, what do they say about it? And what happens is all of those things around the outside make up what is your paradigm, so what is the way we do things around here. And I've been with a lot of organisations where they say, I'm changing the paradigm, so our culture has changed, but they don't change the stuff that happens around the outside. So as Hannah's talking, see if you can sort of see which bits that you think particularly were changed as a result as they went through. So I'll hand over to Hannah now to go through that.
Good morning. Can you hear me okay? My name's Hannah Bell, I'm a detective sergeant. I've got just over 20 years servicing. So in my time, we've had lots of different consultants come in, lots of different programs where we would have different files, and this would be the new gimmick, the new model, and everything would change. It was a little bit like a tsunami would come in, and then once they'd gone, we'd be quite relieved that we wouldn't have to sit there and listen anymore. So we had loads of dusty folders all around underneath people's desks, where every now and again when we got moved somewhere, we would think, oh, can you remember when we used to have that company came in a few years ago. So I was part of the Altogether different programme as a middle manager running a team within covert operations, unbeknown that my life would suddenly change after it. And I think that what Pearl Catchers did, it was create that time and space where people could really settle, let the snow globe settle, and you've got real capacity to really think about what you want, what do we really need as an organisation, because we knew that we were heading for really complex times, that we were going to have officers' numbers, that we were going to be really cut there, our budgets were going to be cut way more than they'd ever really been. So we were preparing for a kind of battle, and I think that before Pearl Catchers came, that everybody was quite defensive, we were frightened, people were worried about their jobs. There was a real divide between the police staff and the police officers, because there was a real assumption then that, oh, it's okay, your jobs are safe, it's all right for you. So I think that we never really did communicate as well as we could have done. This created a real them and us culture. So when we got together with Pearl Catchers, there were really mixed groups, and it was about those people that really kept themselves away from operational policing, really understanding about our work. Vice versa, we realised that there was a real difference in pay, so there was no wonder that lots of the police staff didn't really like us. And I think what happened is that we developed this real time and space to have conversations that we wouldn't normally have. So when we did the action learning sets, we were in groups with people, we were looking at changes throughout the organisation that were quite simple but really exciting, that were having a huge impact on the way that we run our business. And those networks, at first people were thinking, we haven't got time for this, and people were reluctant. But as the success started to really happen and people were getting recognised with the innovative solutions that they're coming up with, that it created a real buzz, and our energy really felt different. And with the programme, I think that everybody in our force, that if you rang up now or you went to Durham, it would be, right, what is your goal? What does success look like for Durham? And through Pearl Catchers, it was going to be, we were going to be the best police force on the planet. Now at first people were like, oh my God, who's this company that you've brought in that's actually allowed you to have that as a goal? Then you think, right, well, the British police forces, they are the best. They're the best in the world when you really look at the integrity and you look at some of the way that we operate. And at the moment, we're the only police force that has got an outstanding in the last HMIC inspection. We're waiting for other results to be published, which I've got a feeling are going to be even better. So we are one of the smallest forces, and there's 43 of them, so they really are competitive. And I think that we knew what we were going to come up against, and we just reframed it. So it was about, right, this is actually a challenge. Can we do this if we have no money? Can we be more creative? And Pearl Catchers was a foundation for really doing things differently. So if you think that Pearl were with us for
about 2 years.
Yeah, about 2 years.
And the first program
that were coming back all the time from the middle managers was, what about them up there? What about the bosses? Are they getting this? And I think that they just thought that Pearl Catchers and the facilitators there were paying lip service. But then, when all of a sudden the Giant Leap was born, which was a programme by one of the by Pete Lordenmore, which was brought in. He did quite a lot of the work, didn't he?
Afterwards, he was in the original programme as well, yeah.
He was somebody who'd really got a feel for the organisation, so that the senior leaders had got someone totally different, a different programme altogether, and the middle managers and the frontline officers thought, you know what, they're actually listening to us, that we're all having the same kind of programme or experience, because it was just the time, the space to reflect and to think about, right, how are we? What am I? How come that sometimes as people in this organisation that I get on with like a house on fire with, we do really good work together, we connect, because we like people who are like us, don't we? And why do we absolutely rub up with some departments and some people? So we used a process which is brought for us, which is called pack types, which really broke down those barriers. So we became, and I can't really remember the point where I thought, this is happening. I kept thinking we were near the tipping point, because by then that I got a job making sure that we had real value for money out of the investment that we'd made, but doing it without any money. So the platform that was created with Sharon and the team gave us this real feel for doing things differently, but to really develop ourselves. So we've got a real learning organisation now where people are curious, that they read around leadership, they read around themselves, and it's a case of, this is right, and it's right for me, and it's okay to do it, even if you're not going for promotion. Whereas at one point, if you did anything different, or if you stuck your head above the parapet, it was like, oh, what are you after? You're just trying to get up the ladder there. And I think that the hierarchy that we had, obviously it's a police force, it's like the military sometimes, that you've got to have the levels. But what we did was we empowered people. So we went from the kind of, well, this doesn't work. Well, it's not my job to fix it. I'm not a boss. They didn't see themselves as leaders at this point, whereas now it's a case of, well, I'm not a boss, but I can actually change it. So rather than taking things up the bureaucratic ladder of, right, let's have a look at this, can we do anything about it? If you're thinking, do you know what, I'm going to give that a go myself. So we've got a real problem-solving culture where we are just the small things, the little waves are really, really having a really positive effect. We've also really looking at the way that we've built them from the action learning sets, and we've got offshoots, we've got jigsaw, we've got different groups that are looking at doing lots of work in the community and fundraising, and they really just came from loads of people that were forced together and actually thought, you know what, we really can make a massive difference.
It was just a few key things, I think, really, when it comes to it, probably the key things were the empowerment, as Hannah said, the getting people involved at a top level and at the frontline manager level, and I think just the conversations. So in terms of a start point of creating some of those things and looking at that cultural web, if you're going to have a starting point, I would suggest those as being really good places to start. I'm conscious that you've all got lots of things to see, lots of things to do today, so I hope the session has been really useful for you. If you want to stay behind and talk to myself or Hannah or Pete or any of the guys here about some specifics, then please feel free to do so. If you haven't already, if we get one of the guys to zap your details, and we can send you more information about anything that you want from there. Other than that, thank you very much for taking part today, and enjoy the rest of the day. Thank you very much.